Welcome back to the Canada Specialist Programme webinar series. Our next update today is with your local representative from Tourism Yukon, Della. Della, welcome to the series and please take it away.
Thank you. Right, I'm sure some of you know me. As I was saying at the beginning, I recognise some of the names that popped up in the chat, etc. And I'm just really going to give you a quick update about the Yukon, somewhere that you might not be so familiar with. I used to do your job. I've been a travel agent and a tour operator, so I know you don't get a call every 5 minutes about the Yukon. I'm not going to try and kid myself. So hopefully you'll know a little bit more by the end of this session. And it's normally like a 20 to 30-minute session, so I'm going to have to rattle through it pretty quickly, so bear with me on that one. So Yukon, larger than life. Now I'm just finding out that it's not going to actually move my it is going to move. Thank you. Right. So larger than life is our tagline for a reason. And really the first question I normally get is, well, where is the Yukon? We've kind of heard of it, but we don't really know much more than that, just the name. So the Yukon is right up there as far north and west as you can get in Canada. We border Alaska, as you can see there, with that little kind of yellow triangle on the map. So Alaska, basically, if you head east out of the Yukon, you're in Northwest Territories. If you head west, you're in Alaska. And south of us is British Columbia. So that's where we are on the map. Even though we are a wilderness destination, we are 80% wilderness. Don't let that scare you, because we are actually really accessible. We're only 2.5 hours from Vancouver, and that's how most Brits will come to us, to be honest. Air Canada obviously has year-round service to Whitehorse via Vancouver, but you can also connect to our local airline, our Yukon-owned airline, Air North, which is actually much easier to book these days. Is actually represented in the UK by APG, so they can always help you with Air North services, but they have a lot more connections in and out of Whitehorse and also up to Dawson City from other gateways, as you can see there, also up to Old Crow in Inuvik, which is in the Northwest Territories. So we're not as inaccessible as you might perhaps think at first glance. Sometimes I get asked, well, can you cruise to the Yukon? Because obviously you're next to Alaska and that's got that massive coastline. Well, the answer is no. We are, though, only 2 hours from Skagway. So the likes of Holland America, etc., as you know, will go into Skagway. We're only 2 hours by road. Also, quite a popular way to see the Yukon is a day trip on the White Pass Railroad, which I'll come to later on another slide. But we do get traffic into Skagway by cruise ship, and people doing multi-day or one-day trips from there. Also, we do get also twinned an awful lot with Alaska. So if you look at anybody's program, if you look at the operators you might buy through, for example, like Canadian Affair, First Class, Prestige, Gold Medal, you will sometimes see Yukon and Alaska itineraries because we are so close to them. And people that look at the Yukon might have seen where we are and think, oh, wow, I could maybe combine, a trip to the Yukon with Alaska, or vice versa. So what are we about? Really two distinct seasons, if I'm honest with you. We don't have a great shoulder season, however much I would love to tell you that. We really are summer or winter with a very short fall. So what are we like in the summer? I think sometimes people think, oh, you're so far north and west, it's Arctic year round, I'm going to need a big puffer jacket year round. That's not the case. In the summer, we're an amazing self-drive destination. We're great for getting outdoors. Obviously, Canada, that's what we're known for, but the Yukon really is Canada on steroids, as my Yukon manager would say. And there's a reason for that, because as I said earlier, we're 80% wilderness. So we have a lot of outdoor space, and you can pretty much do anything that you can think of in outdoor adventure, soft adventure, or, hardcore stuff, whatever your clients want. So in the summer, we are the land of the midnight sun through some of the summertime. So particularly around the solstice, which is obviously around the kind of end of June, mid to the end of June, we sometimes get no nighttime at all. So all your hotels, lodges will always have blackout blinds, because obviously Brits and other nationalities are not used to perhaps having broad daylight at midnight. But what it does, it gives you really, really long days. So you can do, particularly if you're on a fly drive adventure, you've got a lot of hours to do things in. So long daylight hours, it says there, from April to August. And summer temperatures, as it says there, 15 to 33. I must admit, I've only known it to be high 20s a couple of times I've been there in the summer. But, you don't go to the Yukon to lay around in your bikini. So, but it's shirt sleeves, it's short sleeve shirts, it's t-shirts. It's really just kind of very similar to our summer temperatures. So it's not cold in the summertime at all. So just a little brief tour really of the Yukon, just to show you that map again. Whitehorse, as you can see, is that star in the south of the territory. And we kind of lend ourselves quite well really to sort of like this oval, if you like, for a lot of Yukon summer self-drives. And you can see there again on the left-hand side, in the west, Alaska. So if people want to do a summer fly drive and include Alaska, I would say you need to allow more 2.5 to 3 weeks. A Yukon standalone summer fly drive, you're good with 10 to 14 days, depending on your client's time. But do look at your operators that you're buying through. Canadian Affair, like I said, Gold Medal, Prestige, Premier, all those operators, first class, they have Yukon products. So you'll probably notice it now where you may not have noticed it before. Highway connections, we've got great highways. One thing just to mention, we have 5,000 kilometers of well-maintained roads. There is a very famous road called the Dempster, which is the only road in Canada that goes over the Arctic Circle. It is, if you've ever seen the Ice Road Truckers series, it is part of that Ice Road trucker route, that Dempster Highway. And it's that one that you can see there, that Highway 5 that goes up from Dawson City to Inuvik. In the north of the territory. Always kind of prompts me to tell you RVs. I know in Brits sometimes we're a bit scared of RVs, me included. I had to drive an RV and I was like a bit, oh no, I don't know about that. I've never driven one before. But all the things that people worry about driving an RV, oh, it's a big vehicle, I'm going to be trying to negotiate around kind of skyscrapers with this huge vehicle I'm not used to in cramped conditions. None of that applies to the Yukon. You have these wide open spaces, amazing highways, great campgrounds, either government or private campgrounds. And it really is the ideal situation. There's no rush hour, there's no congestion, just wide open highways. So you can take your time and you're not going to have to worry about being in a lot of traffic. It just doesn't exist. We have rush minute, and I thought my boss was joking until I first went to the Yukon to see it for myself. There is no congestion anywhere. Paddler's Haven, really just to make people realize we have an amazing amount of rivers. We have one of the longest in North America, as it says there. Anything you want to do on water, you can do in the summertime, from literally a 2-hour kayak trip to a multi-day where someone sets up camp for you. Depending on your ability, you can be as Bear Grylls as you want to be. As you can probably tell by looking at me, I'm not. Della will be able to confirm this. But, I can enjoy the Yukon as well as somebody that is super active. We can really cater for any level of activity. You can be as gun-ho as you want to be. If you just want to go out on a 2-hour hike or a 2-hour paddle boat or whatever, you can do that too. Flight seeing beyond belief, really just have to say that this again can be purchased as an extra activity through the likes of Canadian Affair, First Class, and all those operators that sell the Yukon. They can do add-ons like this, and the flight seeing is amazing. The reason the flight seeing is so good is we have a UNESCO heritage site in the form of Kluane National Park, and it's one of the largest protected land masses in the world. It's absolutely stunning, and to fly over those ice fields and glaciers is just something you just never forget. Whenever I take fams, people always say it's just one of those bucket list experiences. Yukon Wildlife Preserve, just to kind of mention that we have this kind of it's kind of like a safari park, if you like. It's not really a zoo, but it is just outside of Whitehall. So if your clients don't get to see wildlife because they just happen to not be in the right place at the right time, they can always see them at the wildlife preserve. As it says here, we're home to 43,000 people. And just to kind of reiterate that, 43,000 people in the size of Spain is basically what you're talking about. So if you think we've got around 66 million in the UK, it really does mean you can get away from the crowds. You don't have to be lining up to take a picture anywhere. You're going to be outnumbered by moose 2 to 1. Obviously, we have one of the largest grizzly bear populations in Canada as well. So black bears, sheep, as it says, all kinds of wildlife on view. So winter is a completely different season for obvious reasons. We can get cold, I'm not going to lie to you. We are mainly about aurora viewing. We're not massive on ski. We do have ski, but we don't market ourselves as a big ski destination. But anything else on ice that you want to do, you can do in the Yukon. So really just to kind of run through that experience. Aurora viewing is basically pretty much guaranteed on a 3 to 4 night package. If your clients buy a Northern Lights viewing package through one of those operators that you might buy through, they will have nighttime aurora viewing, because obviously you have to wait for the skies to go dark to see them at their best. And in the daytime, they will add on activities. So it can get down, as it says here, to -35 and beyond. I was actually out there in December, the December just gone, and when I left, the day I left, it was -32. That sounds really, really scary to us Brits, but it's actually not, because it's very, very well equipped for that weather. I always say winter clothing rental is a really good idea, because unless you're a skier, and even if you are, you probably are not going to have the kind of clothing you need if the temperatures really do drop down to kind of that -30 temperature. It is a dry cold. We have a semi-arid climate, which is why we have such amazing northern lights. We don't have much cloud cover. And obviously the peak period really for Northern Lights viewing is probably December through March, if I'm absolutely honest. But people do start going from November. We actually have one of the longest aurora seasons. And that's really, really important, because you can actually see them from mid-August when we go into the fall all the way through to April. So it's not just a winter thing. If your clients go on a summer fall fly drive, they will more than likely still get to see them. Not maybe in the way that you would see them in the winter, but they are visible quite often at that time of the year. So you get the kind of best of both worlds if you go in the fall. Right, rattling on quickly. So what do people do in the daytime if they have aurora viewing trips? Quite often dog sledding is one of the top experiences that people want to do. So they may go out and do a half-day dog sledding, and then they will also maybe do something like snowmobiling in the afternoon. We've also got an amazing hot springs called the Nordic Eclipse, where your hair will freeze like this when it gets to about -30. There are hair freezing competitions in the winter. I was there and sat in the hot springs myself, and it was only about -25, and my eyelashes and everything started frosting over in those temperatures. But it's a really cool thing to do, to sit in those beautiful warm waters. They're actually also going to be opening soon for Northern Lights viewing, so actually nighttime, where you can just sit in the springs and watch the aurora overhead. What else do people do? Snowshoeing, which is harder than it looks. It's quite hard work on the thighs because it's quite heavy going, but it's like little mini ski shoes, really. And it's a great way to get around and obviously hike and see the scenery. Snowmobiling on the left is also really, really popular. That's one of our most popular things to do as well in the winter. So those are all bolt-on activities, if you like, from Aurora packages. Just to really mention about accommodation, we don't have anything above a 4-star. I'm not going to lie to you. If your clients are coming from the Shangri-La in Vancouver, or they're coming from the Westin, or they're coming from a deluxe room at the Fairmont, they're not going to find an equivalent to that in the Yukon. And most people are going to know that. They're not going to just stumble across the Yukon, they will have looked at why they're going there, and they're not necessarily going to go there to stay in a resort property and not move around. But generally, we are 3 to 4 star hotels. We have a relatively new hotel called the Raven Inn, which is one of our very few 4-star properties. We also have a Hyatt Place currently being built as well, but we are great on lodge accommodation. So I just stayed in the Southern Lakes Resort myself, actually, and kind of tagged on a holiday to my last trip, which is this one here. And it's a really different experience to stay in a lodge. And again, you can buy lodge accommodation. It's not just hotels that are being sold through those tour operators that you're buying from. So do take a look at the lodges. They're quite often catered, so you have breakfast and dinner included. It gives a much more personal experience. Yes, it is more expensive than a hotel, but for example, the lake in front of this one, the Southern Lakes, freezes in the winter, and the dogs literally pick you up from the lodge if you go dog sledding. It's a really, really an amazing experience. Northern Lights Resort and Spa is another fantastic inn, sold through John View, sold through the operators that you're likely to be buying from. And again, just an amazing experience, and you can take a lot of activities from the lodge itself. So just a whistle stop map tour again, just a refresher to show you that kind of, where we are in our major cities. Whitehorse is our capital, population about 28 to 30,000 people. Is actually called the Wilderness City because within 10 minutes of being in Whitehorse, you are in the wilderness. So you're in a city, but you're kind of not really because you're so close to the outdoors. Obviously, shopping, dining, art galleries, museums, festivals, as it says there. The White Pass and Yukon Railroad is really a very famous train journey. I mentioned it at the beginning, but it's a really great thing to do if your clients are in Whitehorse. I always recommend it. The scenery is fantastic. And there are day trips, and you can do different combinations where you take part motor coach as well if you don't want to do the train kind of all day. Kluane, I mentioned at the beginning, is our UNESCO heritage site. That's the park that you fly over if you do the flight seeing. There is also flight seeing over Tombstone Territorial Park. It's just one of those really, really special places. It's hard to describe because it is just so vast, but it's stunning. And obviously hiking, all those kind of activities that people want to do is plentiful there. And just another shot again from those flight seeing trips. Dawson, just to really, really quickly mention, home to our gold rush history. That's a really, really important part of our Yukon heritage. In 1898, Dawson Creek gold was found. Gold mining is still our biggest industry. It's not something that just happened and went away. You can still go out to the gold fields. You can still buy local gold, pan for gold. But Dawson is like something out of a little film set. People always say, oh, it's like something out of Universal, because it is literally like this. It's only like about 6 blocks. It sits in the northern part of the territory, and it is really, really fantastic. Colorful buildings, a real character. And this is where over 3 years, starting in 1898, 100,000 people stampeded to Dawson City to try and find gold. And it's an amazing story there. 6-hour drive from Whitehorse, but well worth going to. And you can pan for gold, and you can go and see the dredge, one of the largest wooden hull dredges that's still left there. Nightly can stage performances in the summer months at Diamond Tooth Gertie's, which is our oldest casino in Canada. And just really also to mention, very, very important, everywhere you go in the Yukon, every community, every town will have a First Nations cultural centre. And we have 14 tribes in the Yukon with 11 languages. A fascinating history. Every town, like I said, will have one of these centres. Well worth your clients visiting them. They have different programs. You can often meet and speak to First Nations people, elders that will tell you about, their traditions, way of life, both old and new, and just definitely a not to be missed, as well as obviously other First Nation attractions within the territory. Just also to mention, obviously, Dempster Highway links the Territorial Park, Tombstone Territorial Park that I mentioned when I was talking about flight seeing, another really must do in the Yukon. So really just to summarize, because I know I'm probably running out of time and I'm probably way over time, larger than life is our tagline, wilderness with no crowds, amazing scenery. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning during the winter part of my presentation, we are in the solar max. For the next 3 years, there will be extremely high chances of aurora viewing, much better than before because of solar activity. And it's not something I've made up. I will send you the link in the follow-up email, but there are great aurora viewing opportunities over the next 3 years from now until 2026. So I'm going to be quiet now, Charlie, because I know I've run over time.
Good. That was like Yukon 101. So thank you. Thank you so much.